Well, everyone, thank you for joining us today.
Yeah.
We're here with Robb. She is the owner of Pearl and Tin. So you originally got started in the coffee business, and I know we talked a little bit earlier, but for those of you who don't know, tell us a little bit about how you got started in the floral and the wedding industry to begin with.
Yeah. So originally I was doing a photo booth company. Some basically family friends of ours were running it, and it was kind of on the beginning of the photo booth trend thing that is now normal.
Yes.
And so there was just a lot of trial and error and figuring things out, and a lot of setup and a lot of takedown and all of that. So it was a usually 6-hour gig, you know, it was long, maybe 7. And I just loved meeting people and working the event, and especially weddings. And we kind of did every type of event sort of at the time. And there was one wedding we did that was this wedding planner friend of mine, Elisa. It was her last wedding. And it was beautiful in Mica Bay, right on the water, just a beautiful wedding. And I was like, wow, this is so cool. And awesome. She did this, she made this happen. So I think it kind of just clicked all at that point. And I was like, I really, really like that. And I want to do that. And so I messaged her after, and I was like, I don't know what the odds are, but would you go to coffee with me and let me pick your brain? And she said yes. And so I just asked her every question I could think of, and she gave me every piece of advice. And then she mentored me for the first couple of years and gave me clients, referred people to me, and really kind of helped me build me up a little bit.
Yeah.
And she was on her way out. So it just made sense for her, I think. And there was no competition, you know, and there's such a small amount of wedding planners here anyway, still. So yeah, that's kind of, my dad has been an entrepreneur for a lot of years. So that starting my own business wasn't scary at all.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So how did you come up with the name Pearl and Tin?
I think it has become more meaningful to me now than it was 7 years ago. So my middle name is June. My grandma's name is June. And Pearl is a birthstone for June. And so, you kind of, sometimes I think you think of grandma, you think of grandma's pearls, but that wasn't it. But I was like, okay, I would love to name it after my grandma, but I don't want it to be my name. I wanted it to be something totally different. So I thought of Pearl, and then I was like, oh, Pearl, when I think of a pearl, I think of refined elegance, classic timelessness. And so I was like, okay, what could I find that would contrast elegance? And so I was thinking of something that was kind of rough around the edges, maybe wasn't a fine metal, not gold, not silver. So I was like, oh, tin, that's, I don't know, that, it kind of contrasted. So I liked them together because I felt it's taking nothing and making it something, you know? And my grandma was the matriarch of our family, and always hosted, always was very organized, and just always bringing people in, whether it was family or friends or whatever. So yeah, I just always admired her for that. And even more so now that she's gone, looking back, it's wow, she worked her butt off. She prepped for days just to have people over to her house, even just family, you know?
Wow.
So yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And you mentioned that it has become more meaningful to you over time. Yeah. Tell me a little bit more about that.
Yeah, I feel now that she's gone, it's I feel I have a piece of her still, you know? And I actually have some jewelry from her now, which is really sweet. And my wedding ring, the wedding band, the diamonds are from necklace that my grandpa gave my grandma. So it's special. But yeah, and I love bringing people together, and no matter what, not just weddings, but even in my own home or here, I love hosting and having people in one room, and no matter what kind of people, it's just I love being able to do that. So I feel following in my grandma's footsteps, it just is more meaningful than when I was I don't know, I was 18. I started when I was 18, I think.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, so yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Do you feel that's kind of a driving force behind your business and helps you when serving your clients?
I think so. My grandma was so patient, and so I think like I hope to be that way, you know, and hope that I can be like calm and patient and kind to people, and like she was always that way. So I feel like it's just like much more meaningful now.
Do you feel like you attract a lot of brides who have a lot of meaning behind their ceremony and things like that?
I feel like maybe not as much that as the relationship that we, like when we have a consultation, like I want to make sure that they feel comfortable with me and vice versa too. And that they feel like I'm someone they can talk to about the whole journey, the whole process, and the ups and the downs and the inevitable family drama and the, you know, budget and things that don't go that your way, and just kind of a person who's not your family that is understanding of what you're going through. And I think that's like the most important to me.
Absolutely.
Like, out of all of it. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, and I know you really foster an atmosphere of like love and respect and just have that relationship with your clients, and you really focus on giving them a relaxing experience. Tell me a little bit more about your process when a bride comes to you and says, hey, I want XYZ. What's your first step? How do you go about doing that?
Yeah. Usually I tell them, what are your priorities? Because sometimes you can't have it all, and that's okay. And sometimes their priorities are as simple as, I just want to be with my family and my friends and have a great day. I say, okay, great. How are we going to make that happen? And sometimes it's that they really want the tables to be beautiful and tons of floral and candles, and they want it to be romantic, and they want their guests to feel a certain way when they walk in the room. And every single bride is different, and every client is different. So I feel like I kind of just pick up on what their priorities are and what is meaningful to them, and then start there. Yeah,
absolutely. When I got married almost 12 years ago in rural Colville, like we planned our own wedding. Our budget was like $4,000. Like we had nothing, and so I never thought about affording a wedding planner. Never thought of any of that, and so the whole wedding planning process was a little overwhelming to me. Right. For you, how do you go about reaching out to vendors and taking out some of that overwhelm when it comes to working with your clients?
I usually base a lot of it on personality and like what are these clients like? What are their personalities like? And how can I match a team of vendors that is going to complement their personality and get along and have a great team? Because even if a vendor does great work, they could have completely opposite personality from the client, and it just isn't a good match. Just like I'm not a good match personality-wise for every bride and groom. So it really just depends. But I would say it's the funniest one is like always when it comes to DJ, because I'm like always asking them like, what kind of music do you want? Like what kind of DJ, like what kind of atmosphere do you want? And they're just like, I don't know. I'm like, okay, so have you ever been to a club, or like where do you go when you go out, or like how do you like to dance?
Do you want to waltz, or do you want to pop?
Like, do you want a classic wedding DJ that plays like wedding songs, or are you wanting someone that's gonna like mix it? And it's always funny where we like start to like where we end up. They're like, oh yeah, that's what I want. Like that's exactly
that's for sure.
Yeah, they
but
just
you
like
have to
don't
pull
know.
That out of them.
They don't know. You don't know what you don't know. Like if you've never planned a wedding before, like how would you know what kind of DJ you want?
Absolutely.
Or band or whatever.
Yes. Well, and I find that even with makeup, like brides come to me, I kind of want this. And I'm like, okay, let's tweak it to your face shape and your eye shape and your personality. And then we end up coming up with something that sometimes is a little bit similar to their photos. And sometimes it's totally different.
Totally different, yeah.
And I know when I was picking out my wedding dress 12 years ago, it was like, oh, I didn't expect to get that. Yeah. But that's really what fit me. Yeah. And I think that's an interesting perspective that you make when choosing your wedding vendors and finding someone that fits your personality, because it's easy to, or it might not be easy to choose a DJ or choose somebody and just kind of like glean a group of people, but having their personalities match and really crafting it to you and your fiance is huge.
Yeah, and it's not like they've worked with all these people before. Yeah. So how would they know what their personalities are like? And so it's kind of nice being an outsider on all ends and saying, okay, I'm getting this vibe from you. I get this vibe from this person who I've worked with before, or I've heard great things about or know someone who has.
Yeah.
And so I know that they're like this. You guys are a great match, you know?
Yes.
And how would they know, you know? So
Absolutely.
I don't know. I mean, obviously I think everyone should have a wedding planner, but I also know like my wedding was the same way. Like I think all said and done, it was like $4,000 or $5,000. We were in a yard. We did weeks of weeding and mowing and things like that to get it ready. And it was a lot of time and labor, but I mean, every wedding is beautiful and it is what you make of it. So
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, and I know you have kind of two different ends of your business because you have the wedding planning side and the floral side. How do those go together? Tell me more about that.
Yeah. So I'm actually in the process of rebranding Pearl and Tin. It's still going to be the same name. It's just going to have a fresh look. So I'll probably be releasing that like next week, hopefully. Really excited. It's been too long. Like I've needed to do it for a while now. So I'm excited to do that. But I actually think I'm going to rename the flower shop and separate it a little bit just so that people kind of understand they are separate. However, they're more like sister companies that work together and separate from each other. So trying to like kind of draw that line a little bit more clear, because in my head it makes sense, but like to other people maybe it doesn't.
Yeah.
But our clients can hire us for wedding planning, they can hire us for floral design, and they can hire us for both. So whatever they want to do, if they want to walk in and buy a bouquet, if they want to hire us for their wedding, if they want to hire us to do flowers for their birthday party, we kind of do it all, I guess.
No, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
So when working with a client and it comes to planning their wedding, what's the first thing that you do? Because I know nothing about wedding planning. Like, where do you start? Because I feel like there are so many different areas that you could go.
So, so if they don't have their venue booked, then we would get a venue and a date right away. Yeah. And then from there, it's vendor selection. And usually the big items are, if the venue doesn't provide like tables and chairs and linens, like kind of your basic needs, we make sure to get an order going for that. DJ, entertainment band, whatever people want to do, photographer, videographer. I always encourage my clients to go dress shopping sooner rather than later, and then they can always get alterations as they get closer and get it fitted to their body. And then hair and makeup also, like I put that right in the same category as booking all of your other vendors immediately. Absolutely. Yeah. Florist, if they're working with us, great. If they're not, totally fine too. We don't care either way. So, but yeah, really getting a good vendor team is kind of the first big thing. Yeah,
absolutely. Is there one wedding that's been the most challenging or like the tightest time frame?
It's hard to pick one, I think. No. Yeah, we've had some tight timelines for sure. I think the hardest ones have been like the private residence weddings, which we've done a lot of. Yeah. But you're building from nothing. Yes. And it's just a lot to bring in. It's a lot of problem solving. It's a lot of actually trying to find the problems before they happen, sort of. You know, do we have enough power? Do we have enough circuits? Do we have enough water? Do we have just like the simplest things that you wouldn't even think of at a brick and mortar venue. But like when you're just building it from nothing, it's kind of everything. So I would say those are challenging. But 2 summers ago, it was like blistering hot in June, and we had a wedding like on the top of the mountain on Coeur d'Alene Lake, and she's a friend of mine, and it was so beautiful, but it was like 105 degrees that day, and we were just super, super high up, no shade, straight sun, and we were trying to like keep the flowers alive. We had no air conditioning. We just were doing what we could do. And like at one point I was like putting flowers on the arbor, and I literally almost passed out like from like just being so dehydrated and dizzy. And like, I was like having chest pain, and I had to like sit down and be like, I have to make it through this. Like, I don't care what happens. Like, I just have to. I feel like that was probably the most challenging, because you can't predict the weather. You can't do anything about it. Like, you just have to make it happen. Yes. And so that was rough. That was really rough. I mean, it all came together and it was beautiful, and the photos are beautiful, and the day was great, but holy moly. Yes. Yeah, we were sweating.
I had one wedding last year. out like in Newport, and it was at a venue that I had never been to before, but they don't have a closed area for like getting ready because it was in an old barn, and so it didn't have windows. I had slats in the floor.
Yeah.
And at one point the weather shifted from like 95 and wonderful to, I mean, the temperature dropped like 20 degrees. The wind was ripping through. And so I was trying to like do setting spray. The setting spray was just blowing away. And then the bees were starting to come in. And so now I have a clause in my contract, like must have a temperature controlled area for getting ready, because like the hairstylists, they're trying to make curls and the hair was blowing away.
You're looking out for them too by doing that. Like you're trying to help them have a better experience and a better day.
Exactly. And the bride was totally fine and she was happy with it. She was like, it's fine, it's great. And I'm like, I am not good with it. But it turned out fine. But it was just one of those situations where you're like, you live and you learn, and you don't know until you don't know.
Right.
And little things like having porta potties at a private residence, or making sure it gets enough light and things like that. You don't think about it.
No, you don't. Barn weddings are hard. They are hard. They're really hard. I mean, they can be great and beautiful, but they are hard.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, what year did you get married?
2016.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you've been married a little while.
Yeah.
Do you have a piece of advice that you would give to brides that are getting married in relation to their wedding or their marriage, or what's kind of one of those things that has stuck out to you throughout the years?
I think communication, one, in your marriage is vital.
Yes.
But two, with your family and friends, I think sometimes as a bride, you get sucked up into this cloud of, oh my gosh, it's going to be this, it's going to be so fun, it's going to be this. And you forget that you need to communicate your expectations to your friends and family, and also ask them what their expectations are for the day. And sometimes moms or, people who are of significance in your life can have an idea of what they want the day to look like and what they are hoping to get out of it, and whether it's like certain picture combinations, like they really wanted this combination of grandma and grandpa and this and that wasn't maybe on your radar, that wasn't maybe on your list because maybe that's not sentimental to you, but just those simple little things that like, those are the people that helped raise you, and like they're probably helping you pay for this wedding. And so I think like just to remember to communicate and like be okay with a little bit of conflict and just communicate through it, because that is going to make you a better person, and it's going to make your connection with that family member or friend stronger and better too. And there has not been one wedding probably ever without conflict. Like literally, I would probably swear on the Bible that there's not been a wedding without some type of conflict throughout the process or day of. Yeah. And so definitely the more you can like try to avoid that, especially day of, so you're having conversations ahead of time. I think that would be my biggest advice.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yay.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for doing this.
Yeah,
this
absolutely.
is so fun.
Yeah.
And tell people where they can find you. Is it best for them to reach out to you on social media or Instagram?
We have 2 pages on Instagram. We have our flower shop page, and then we have just the wedding planning page, which is just Pearlington, at Pearlington. And then our flower shop is Shop Pearlington. Okay. But stay tuned for rebranding, because we might be coming up with a new name for the flower shop and new logo and stuff for Pearlington Wedding Planning. And our website is just pearlington.com, all in one place. So
awesome. Yeah. Well, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Yay.
Thanks for having me.